I get it. Well, maker. Whoops, I got it. There we go. We good. I guess it's the way the chairs are running here. Yeah. Shut the thing off.
Testing 1, 2.
Good evening. Welcome to Wilson Park and tonight's Ludington Guard Band concert. My name is Jim Woodford. Would you please welcome the Ludington Guard Band? Thank you very much. We are so happy to see a very full park tonight. We have an exciting concert for you. You're going to love it. Let's get right to it. Without further ado, please rise for our national anthem, if you are able, as some nominee singers.
Stripes and bright stars through
And Menominee Honor Guard, a hand for those guys for raising our flag tonight. Thank you guys. Thank you, Menominee Singers. We will see you guys a little bit later in the concert. Thank you very much. Okay, our first piece is Sousa March. And this one is the Liberty Bell, a little bit above the Liberty Bell. Sousa actually wrote this piece, started writing it for a completely different operetta-style play as part of the music for it. And after he couldn't work it out with the sponsors of the show, he pulled his music out of it and decided to just finish the march by itself, but he couldn't come up with the title for it. And then one day his tour manager and him were watching a play about America, and the backdrop for the play was this giant Liberty Bell. And his manager says, you know, I think that might be a good title for your march. And then the next day, he got a call from his wife who said their son just marched his first parade in Philadelphia in honor of the return of the Liberty Bell. So that sealed it right there, and that's how it became called the Liberty Bell. And tonight we're going to dedicate this march very special to Miss Paula Utfall for all her generous support of the Ludington Guard Band over the years. So let's give a big hand for that. And here we go. This is the Liberty Bell March. Okay, well, you're going to hear Sousa a couple times throughout this concert, but this next piece is quite a bit different. It's written by a man named Travis Weller, and what he wanted to do was write a piece for his father who was in the Vietnam War, and he said, were it not for him, I would not understand nor appreciate the sacrifices made by the men and women of the armed services throughout American history. This setting of America, or My Country 'Tis of Thee, is written by a grateful and fortunate son for a father who is a hero, a friend, my first musical role model, and a patriot of America. So this is entitled, yes, American Visions by Travis Weller. Our next piece is entitled Songs of Grace and Songs of Glory. It's a Sousa piece. It's not your traditional Sousa march, but I'll just give you a little bit of a history about it. David Blakely, the Sousa Band's first tour manager, understood the financial necessity of giving Sunday performances for the band. For the second half of the band's first season, John Philip Sousa prepared a special arrangement of well-known hymns to be used at his Sunday performances, and Sousa chose a poetic title, Songs of Grace and Songs of Glory. Utilizing the opening phrases from Verdi's Requiem as an introduction, Sousa then presents the famous 18th century Rock of Ages. The strains of Rock of Ages are soon transformed into the African-American spiritual Steal Away. After Steal Away, Sousa adds to his grand melange a setting of Mary and Martha, also of a spiritual origin, American spirit. Then a solo euphonium peals forth the venerable Holy Week anthem, the Palms, and as a grand climax, Sousa employed a stirring version of the English hymn, Nearer My God to Thee, which earlier, while he was still conductor of the Marine Band, he had scored for the occasion of President Garfield's funeral. And the final coda, he brings this magnificent work to a close with a quiet and almost distant scoring of Steiner's sevenfold Amen from his oratorio, The Crucifixion. It is interesting to note that during this performances at the Chicago's World Columbian Exposition of 1893, crowds exceeding 100,000 people joined together and sang these hymns to the accompaniment of the Sousa Band. Over the years, it was performed countless times by the Sousa Band, and more recently has become a favorite at band concerts around the country. This is Songs of Grace and Songs of Glory. Okay, as always, feel free to get up and go get a piece of pie. Lots of things they're serving back there. Tonight's servers are the Girl Scouts. I see they've got some frosting covered cakes, brownies. They've got fruit pies. They've got all kinds of stuff back there, and it looked fantastic. It looked like they had a pretty good supply. Also, our popcorn stand over here to support the senior center. Please go ahead and support them anytime through the concert. We won't feel bad if you get up and have it, because we are going to go back there at intermission and see what's left for us to have. Okay, and now we have a very special treat. We have one of our own coming up to play a solo for you. The piece is entitled S.A.M. Blue. It's a wonderful jazz piece, and please welcome Mr. Joshua Hopper. Mr. Joshua Hopper. How about a hand? Fantastic. Woo. And now it's time in our patriotic concert where we honor all of our members of the service. This is entitled the Armed Forces Salute, and we're going to play the service song from each brand of the Armed Forces. And when you hear your song, if you are a veteran, when you hear your song, please stand up and receive a big round of applause from the audience. And tonight we have a very special new arrangement of this to include the United States Space Force. And just a little history about this. The song of the Space Force is entitled Semper Supra, which is Latin for always above. And the lyrics are, we're the mighty watchful eye, guardians beyond the blue, the invisible front line, war fighters brave and true. Boldly reaching into space, there's no limit to our sky, standing guard both night and day, we're the Space Force from on high. So, if we have anybody from the Space Force, please stand up because this song is a special song, and this is the first time we've ever been able to play it with all the branches of the service. So here we go. There we go. Our next piece is entitled Portrait of Freedom by Stephen Reinecke. It was composed in October of 2001 as a tribute to the indomitable spirit of America. It is inspired by the events of September 11th, 2001, and he decided to honor the men and women of the police and fire departments as well as the armed forces. This piece is a celebration of the heroic efforts of those who have made the ultimate sacrifice for this great nation. Portrait of Freedom by Stephen Reinecke. Thank you, thank you. I'd like to recognize John Clare, trumpet solo on that, Heidi Kyle, flute solo. Travis Gadel on French horn. Give him a nice round of applause. You bet. Okay, well, we are having lots of fun up here playing. We've got one more to play before we take an intermission. So here we go. That means it is time for the Children's March. So here's what we need to have happen. Let's get all the little kids over here on my right-hand side. And I mean kids of all ages, really. Those that are small, those that are tall, those that are young at heart. For our Children's March, Ludington Guard Band tradition. And the way it works is when the music starts, march across the stage as many times as you want. Please, parents, take their picture. This is Ludington Guard Band history. Wave to the crowd. Have a lot of fun. Don't jump off the end there because you might get hurt. Just have a lot of fun. Take it easy. And we might even have a little something for a handout for all of you. So let's get going. Let's get all the kids up here so we can have a really good children's march. You bet, they're still coming. All right, that's awesome. I can still see them running over there. Let's get them all lined up. You bet. All right. And what a wonderful way to start off our 4th of July weekend here with the Ludington Guard Band concert. All right, are we set, ladies and gentlemen? All right, here we go. Oh, I almost forgot. And whatever you remember, don't touch the director.
building a wood shed. I just need to get some shingles on somebody Joe and finish that off. Steps down to our lake. I've got the big cement blocks. They're probably about 60 pounds each. They're all kind of eroded. Fry them and lift them and dirt and put facing rocks under it to level them, and then make sure it doesn't wobble. So you're doing it over and over. Yeah, a couple hours of that. I wasn't going to last that long, but it was something this afternoon. I said, oh, it's too hot, but I'm out and I'll go perform in the woods.
Oh, not too hot.
Yeah, it's supposed to be 86 and humid. It sounded hot to me.
Right.
But it was probably at least 5 degrees cooler with the wind, nice breeze coming off the lake in the shade. The rest of the week was terrible. I better keep working today.
Yeah, exactly. Everything coming to our sink started leaking, spraying on the side of the freezer pipe. But the attachment, you can't get loose freezers and
They're way up in there.
way up in there.
You've got about 2-foot long fingers that are stronger than anything you can get in the like that. I've got one of those things too.
Oh really? No, I wish I had that. I was like, what tool can I use that would tighten it? Untighten it.
Delta Closet at least gave me a special tool. The guys who put it in made sure don't use that tool.
I see that. I needed,
Label it if
I think I needed that, but you know, we weren't the ones who put it in. So
Yeah.
And then I had to build my own thing, which got a 360 outer diameter compressor pipe. And then I used to get it adapted to eventually 1/2 inch, iron pipe. Well, the thing is I did it last year, but then I didn't replace all of them. I just replaced the one.
Well, I don't blame you for not doing any more than you have to.
So, but then I realized I had to, now I have to do the other. I've forgotten the recipe of what I had to do. And then once I did, still, it's a lot of hardware coming out. Oh, napkins. Yeah.
By the end of it, I'm waving my arm. Conducted the band. I go crazy. You see me driving the car, but I can on the radio. Another driver just go, whoa.
Really?
Sir, could I put your crouch? Thank you.
Chris, need me to fill in?
Yeah.
What are you doing? Hanging in there? Yeah. Yeah, you sound good. It's the first time I went to this, I think.
This freshman saying this one too.
Yeah. Well, Nick called and he said they were going to be here. So we came down quick. You know, nice 4th of July celebration. Yeah. You look a little peaked. You lost some weight. You've been in my last.
Okay, and welcome to intermission. We are the White Pine Ramblers, and that was Sugar Blues starring Mr. John Clare himself on trumpet. And we're going to continue on with another old favorite. This is the Livery Stable Blues.
Nice seeing you. You had a good birthday?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to move on, and this is Basin Street Blues. Okay, thank you. Once again, we are the White Pine Ramblers, and we have Ms. Lana Laird on the keys, Larry Jess on clarinet, John Clare on trumpet, Margaret Breisch on tenor sax, and we got David Kyle on drums, Carol Rund on tuba, way in the back there, and me, I'm Jim Woodford, the announcer, the trombone player, everything else. So this is the Darktown Strutters Ball.
I guess we're done.
Good evening, everybody. Hello, everybody. I'm Juliana Schmidt. I'm the Executive Director of the Menominee Singers. What you see in front of you is just a portion of our choir. We put on 4 concerts a year, and we're holding auditions again on August 18th and 19th. So if you're interested in auditioning, contact me. Go to the website, Menominee Singers, themenomineesingers.org. And thank you, the Ludington Guard Band, for this wonderful opportunity for us to sing.
Welcome back to the second half of our program, and we welcome the Menominee Singers for the second half. Thank you for staying. We've got a bunch of tunes yet to play. We hope you enjoy them and sing along if you want to, please. We're going to start things off with Samuel Ward's America the Beautiful. going to continue with the patriotic sing-along. Feel free to sing along. We have Yankee Doodle America, America the Beautiful, Caisson's Marines Hymn, Grand Old Flag, Battle Hymn of the Republic. Here we go. for the Menominee Singers. Thank you. Wonderful. The year 1812 Solemn Overture, Opus 49, popularly known as 1812 Overture, is a concert overture in E-flat major written in 1880 by Russian composer Peter Ilyich Tchaikovsky. The piece commemorates Russia's successful defense against the French invasion of the nation in 1812. The overture's first public performance under the baton of Ippolyte Al-Tani took place in Moscow on August 20th, 1882, under a tent near the still unfinished Cathedral of Christ the Savior, which was also memorializing the 1812 defense of Russia. The 15-minute overture is best known for its climactic volley of cannon fire, ringing chimes, and a brass fanfare finale. It has also become a common accompaniment to fireworks displays on the United States Independence Day. The 1812 Overture went on to become one of Tchaikovsky's most popular works, along with his ballet scores to Nutcracker, Sleeping Beauty, and Swan Lake. As a rousing patriotic hymn, the overture has subsequently been adapted into associated other contexts than that of Russian resistance. The 1812 Overture is popularly known in the United States as a symbol of the United States Independence Day, a tradition that dates back to 1974, a choice made by Arthur Fiedler for a performance of the Boston Pops July 4th concert. Ladies and gentlemen, the 1812 Overture. Thank you very much for your attendance tonight. We appreciate you. We appreciate playing for a full park. Remember that we are here every Tuesday night in the summer through the first week of August, and we will be doing the Paint the Town concert coming up on Saturday, July 19th, I think it is. And check us out then, and always bring a friend, and always go get some pie for breakfast the next day so they get it all sold, always for a good cause. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to finish things up with John Phillips, who is the Stars and Stripes Forever. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Have a great night, everyone.